Would you believe us if we told you Bluey's parents' jobs shouldn't be enough to pay for their house? That's because it's way more expensive than it looks. That's why some people believe they inherited a fortune, while others think Bluey's parents are secretly criminals. House. Everything suggests that the Healer family's house is worth a fortune. It looks normal, but it's full of bedrooms, hallways, and has more than one floor. Not to mention that it's located in an upscale neighborhood where houses are pretty expensive. Want to know how we figured that out? Then take a closer look at this building near their home. That's the church in Red Hill, an upscale neighborhood in Brisbane. In other words, Bluey's house must be in Red Hill or Paddington, a nearby neighborhood that's also pretty wealthy. But here's the thing, houses in Paddington cost around 1 million Australian dollars, while homes in Red Hill can cost close to 2 million. That's a lot of money, and that's where things start getting even stranger. Bluey's parents would need to be rich to afford a house like that, but their jobs don't exactly come with insanely high salaries. Bandit is an archaeologist, and Chili works part-time in airport security. The average salary for both jobs is around $67,000 a year. Those are great salaries, but not enough to pay for a $1 or $2 million house. So where did the money they used to buy this place come from? We're going to figure that out together.
You already know, right? Another Cinewave is starting.
Smugglers. What if we told you Bandit and Chili are criminals? This is a bizarre fan theory. The craziest part is that it actually makes a lot of sense and explains how they have way more money than they should. But the real reason so many people believe it is that the couple's jobs are perfect for a smuggling operation. Bandit is an archaeologist and takes part in expeditions where he and other archaeologists search for ancient, extremely valuable fossils to study. But what if Bandit steals some of those fossils and sells them on the black market? That's where Chili would come in, because she works in airport security and could hide the stolen fossils inside luggage so they could be sold in other countries for millions of dollars. It's bizarre how everything fits together and perfectly answers the mystery surrounding the Healer family's house. The funny thing is that this would mean Bandit's own name is actually a pretty subtle clue that he's a criminal, which becomes obvious once you stop and think about it. Take a closer look at his face. He has that name because the black fur around his eyes looks like a bandit mask, but it could also be a double-meaning joke about Bluey's dad's secret career. However, despite all this supposed evidence, Joe Brum, the creator of Bluey, confirmed that this theory isn't true. Yep, the theory became so famous that he had to officially deny it. But let's be real, if Bandit and Chili actually were criminals, would Joe Brum really confirm something like that outside the show? He'd probably save that secret for a future episode and deny the theory until then. What do you think? Rich grandparents. Maybe the mysterious wealth the Healer family used to buy the house didn't come from crime at all, but from Bandit's parents. That's right, Grandpa Bob and Nana Chris might have a fortune, and the craziest part is that if this is true, we may have actually seen the moment they became rich without even realizing it. It could have happened in the episode Fairy Tale, back when Bandit was a kid. Look at this scene where a younger Bob appears. He's using this tube to dig fishing bait out of the sand so he can go fishing. But what if he found more than just bait? Maybe, for example, some kind of treasure buried in the sand.
The scene doesn't last very long and is suddenly cut off by another scene somewhere else. Since this flashback is a story being told by Bandit, he may have skipped the part where his family discovers they just became rich, so Bluey and Bingo won't know that they have a lot of money, or that they used to. After all, Bandit may have only received enough money to buy his house, while the rest of the fortune is still with his parents, since they're both still alive. Take a look at Bluey's grandparents' apartment. It looks pretty expensive too. Not to mention that Grandpa Bob was missing for almost the entire series because he was traveling through India on a journey of self-discovery, and let's be real, that's the kind of thing rich people usually have the money to do. Celebrities. It makes a lot of sense for the family's wealth to come from Bluey's grandparents, but what if Bluey herself is actually a celebrity and is starring in a TV show? Yes, every episode of the cartoon could simply be the characters acting and filming a series that exists inside the Bluey universe itself. We're not just making this up. Let's take a closer look at this scene from The Quiet Game. Wait, the little dog on that poster is Bluey herself. And as if that wasn't enough, that image is actually a scene from another episode of the series called Fruit Bat. If Bluey were just an ordinary kid, you wouldn't expect to find a picture of her displayed in the middle of the city, but it makes perfect sense if she's a celebrity. And that wasn't the only time something like this happened. In the episode Kids, Bluey is at the supermarket. Take a closer look at this box. Bluey's house is drawn on it, and Bluey herself is part of the picture, almost like there's a Bluey toy house inside that box. This makes it even clearer that Bluey and the Healer family are famous even inside the universe they live in, and are treated like characters from a TV show or something like that. If that's true, then they definitely have enough money to buy the house they live in. But if even their house is famous and toy replicas of it are being sold, does the Healer family actually live in that house? Or is it just the place where the episodes of their show are filmed? So which one of these theories do you think makes the most sense? Comment #money down below along with your opinion. Famous archaeologist. It's fun digging up the Healer family's secrets, right? And speaking of digging, maybe we underestimated how much Bandit makes as an archaeologist, because we found a clue that he might be one of the most important archaeologists in the world. That clue appears in the short called Archaeology, where we see Bluey's dad giving an archaeology lecture and talking about his latest discovery, the only bone ever found from the first dog in history to walk upright. That's an insanely important discovery, and Bandit was responsible for it. So even if his parents aren't rich or his family isn't made up of celebrities, this could explain how Bandit has so much money. He may simply be extremely important in his field, and could make a fortune taking part in high-level research, as well as teaching at some of the biggest universities in the country. Toys. You might also be doubting that the Healer family is actually rich because they don't really draw much attention to themselves. They don't have a brand new luxury car, they don't live in a mansion, and they don't wear expensive clothes, or clothes at all for that matter. However, that could simply mean they prefer to stay under the radar. After all, take a look at this pile of toys in the episode Mr. Monkey Jocks. Bluey and Bingo have a lot of toys, and we mean a lot. And Bluey is even looking for more toys to buy. In other words, her parents spoiled her quite a bit when it came to toys, buying pretty much anything she asked for. Bandit even starts complaining about it, but not because of the money. He complains because there are toys all over the house that the girls don't even play with anymore. Moving. Everything suggests that the Healer family is rich, but things get really confusing because of the episode The Sign, when Bandit decides they need to move to another city because of a job offer with a much higher salary. In the end, he decides not to go through with it. But if that job offer was so tempting to Bandit, that means more money really does make a difference for his family, right? And that probably wouldn't be the case if they were filthy rich, like they sometimes seem to be. Unless they do have a lot of money, just not as much as we've been theorizing, or maybe they used to be rich but spent almost everything buying the house. So what's the truth? Military money. Well, if we're talking about the truth, there's one fact that very few people remember. Grandpa Mort fought in a war. In fact, take a closer look at this photo of him. There's a medal in the picture suggesting that he wasn't just a soldier, but someone who actually fought in a war and received medals for his service. Chili was a kid in the 1980s, as shown in Fairy Tale, which means there's a chance Mort fought in the Vietnam War, which ended in the 1970s, around the time he would have been a young soldier. If Mort kept serving in the military even after earning a medal, he could definitely have been promoted to a high-ranking position that paid him a lot of money. There's a new video here every day, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay up to date. Parents' house. By the way, remember the theory that Bandit's parents are rich and gave him the money used to buy the house? What if in reality the house actually belonged to his parents all along, and they either gave it to him or sold it to him at a really good discount after he married Chili? After all, this house is a Queenslander. That's a very old style of Australian house that was popular from the late 19th century through around the 1940s. It's exactly the kind of house Bluey's grandparents could have lived in when they were younger. But what if Bluey's house isn't even real in the first place? Believe it or not, this theory is more possible than it sounds, and we're going to explain it right now, so get ready. Fake house. That's right, maybe Bluey's house never really existed at all, at least not in the way we know it. One of the main reasons we think she lives in an expensive home is because the house always seems really big, full of different bedrooms, hallways, staircases, and so on. But the creator of Bluey himself confirmed that the house seems so big because the show is presented from Bluey and Bingo's point of view, two kids with huge imaginations. When we're children, places seem much bigger simply because we're smaller and we see the world with a certain kind of magic. The show was simply trying to capture that feeling. Joe Brum even said that the house is constantly changing shape and that new rooms appear whenever the story needs them. If you think about it that way, even the scenery outside, like the hill the house sits on, might not be completely real. The Red Hill Church might not even be that close, which would mean we don't actually have any guarantee that the Healer family lives in a wealthy neighborhood. Just imagine if all of this turned out to be a misunderstanding because fans of the show were being influenced by the way Bluey sees the world.
We've left 2 videos on your screen so you can choose and keep having fun with us. See you in the next video.